Good afternoon, everybody. We will begin our studies of business ethics. Business ethics has become embedded in most business coursework, especially after the Enron debacle, WorldCom, etc. It's mandatory in your accounting studies for your CPA, also in management, and it's a very, very important course because people sometimes feel that they can lead chaste, good, ethical lives in their private areas. However, when it comes to business, it's a dog-eat-dog-eat world. So it's kind of like, survival of the fittest, and that's absolutely not the case. So we're going to start off Chapter 1, Ethics and Business. Start off on slide number 2 with the learning objectives. After reading this chapter, you'll be able to explain why ethics is important in the business environment, explain the nature of business ethics as an academic discipline, distinguish the ethics of personal integrity from the ethics of social responsibility, distinguish ethical norms and values from other business-related norms and values, distinguish legal responsibilities from ethical responsibilities, explain why ethical responsibilities go beyond legal compliance, describe the ethical decision-making as a form of practical reasoning. Next slide, ethics in business. This is a quote from a famous business person we all know, Warren Buffett. It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. How true that is. Trust in someone is something very difficult to gain. It takes a long time to build that trust. And that trust can be destroyed very, very quickly and not easily salvaged and rebuilt. Making the case for business ethics. The next slide. Business ethics is a process of responsible decision making. Scandals are brought about by ethical failures, and scandals are all over the news. Just turn on the radio and you'll hear them every day. This text provides a decision-making model that can help avoid future ethical failures. This chapter reflects on the intersection of ethics and business. There has been a shift from whether ethics should play a role in business decisions to how to most effectively do so. So now it's not a question of should we do it or should we not do it, it's how are we going to do it. Responsible decision-making must move beyond concerns for stockholders to consider the impact on all stakeholders. Stockholders, the ones that own shares in the organization, are definitely important stakeholders, but there are other stakeholders, people that have a claim on the company, people or groups, the government, you have the general environment, you have the employees. They also play a very, very important role. They must be also looked at, examined. Anyone who affects or is affected by decisions made within the firm, for better or worse, are a part of this equation. Ethics in business. Ethics is the new competitive environment. This is a quote from Peter Robinson, CEO of Mountain Equipment Co-op, and he was CEO from 2000 to 2007. Making the case for business ethics continued. Let's look at the legal requirements. So there's legal requirements for being ethical. Unethical behavior creates legal, financial, and marketing risks. Maintaining an ethical advantage aids success. People want to be associated with ethical organizations. Ethical reputation provides a competitive edge. People love Starbucks because they're so ethical, because they're so into the environment. Ethical management may aid organizational structure and efficiency. For business students, ethics is an important field of study, and leaders need to know how to manage ethical behavior of others. Businesses must take ethics into account and integrate ethics into its organizational structure. It's not an abstract thing, it's not something from the outside. It has to be hardwired, it has to be mixed in. Think of it as pouring concrete and it hardening around the mesh on a sidewalk. You've ever seen people building sidewalks? They take out the old sidewalk, they put in this mesh, and then they pour the concrete, and then it mixes and it becomes one solidified thing. So this has to become hardwired, it has to become part cemented into the organizational psyche. But what is ethics? So responsible decision-making and deliberation will result in more responsible behavior. Here, ethics refers to how human beings should properly live their lives. Think of it as an internal compass that helps you react to the moral dilemmas that we come across every single day. The author's fundamental assumption is that a process of rational decision-making can and will result in behavior that is more reasonable, accountable, and ethical. Teaching ethics must challenge students to think for themselves, because the bottom line is you'll be out there in the real world and you'll be confronted with something. If you're not going to be thinking ethically, or not told what ethical thinking is, how will you make those decisions on your own? I won't be there for you every single day. I myself need people sometimes to talk to, but I have to live my life with a thought of ethics. In other words, every time something comes across my radar screen, I have to say to myself, oh wow, what do I need to do? I can't just jump into it. I have to deliberate and think. So, ethics questions how we should live. Philosophers emphasize that ethics is normative, dealing with our reasoning about how we should act. Social sciences also examine human decision-making actions, but these sciences are descriptive rather than normative. They provide an account of how and why people do act the way they do, they describe. So it's telling you why, how they react. With a normative discipline, ethics seeks an account of how and why people should act a certain way. It's the reasoning, not just how they acted and maybe what precipitated those actions, but the background, how they should reason, how they should think, and how they should behave. Ethics in business. We have a quote from Václav Havel, who lived from 1936 to 2011. Without commonly shared and widely entrenched moral values and obligations, neither the law nor democratic government nor even the market economy will function properly. In other words, without ethics, society as we know it will come to a grinding halt. Everything will fall apart. It's not a matter of, okay, I cheated, it's not a big deal. When people cheat, when people affect the moral climate within the world around them, it has a tremendous negative impact on everything. All businesses can be affected. So the next time you make a decision, especially for someone who has power, think about the implications. So the next slide, talking about how should we live, if defining we individually versus if defining we collectively. If defining we individually, here ethics is based on our value structures, defined by our moral systems, and referred to as morality or personal integrity. If morals refer to the underlying values on which decisions are based, ethics refers to the application of those morals to the decisions themselves. If defining we is a collective idea, then this area is sometimes referred to as social ethics, as the we, the collective we. Here we judge companies from a social perspective for their social responsibility, how responsible they are to society around them. Managerial decisions involve both aspects of ethics, personal integrity, vis-a-vis the manager themselves, and of course the social responsibility of the entire company to the surrounding environment. Business ethics as personal integrity and social responsibility. Next slide. The normative approach to business is at the center of business ethics. Step back from the facts to ask, what should I do? What rights and responsibilities are involved? What good will come out from the situation? Am I being fair, just, virtuous, kind, loyal, trustworthy? Ethics is a normative discipline as it deals with norms. Those standards of appropriate and proper, or as we call it, normal behavior. Normative disciplines presuppose some underlying values. Distinction between values and ethics. Next slide. Values are the underlying beliefs that cause us to act or to decide one way rather than another. This is our value system, what we value as good and just. Many different types of values can be recognized. Individuals have their own personal values, and businesses also have values, shown in the company's culture. An individual's or a corporation's set of values may lead to either ethical or unethical results. From my own personal experience, if you have good ethics and you bring that to work, your organizational ethics will then equal your internal ethics, and there won't be any dichotomy, there won't be any tension between the two. One way to distinguish values is in terms of the ends or goals they serve. Ethical values serve the ends of human well-being. Those values, those decisions, guiding beliefs that impartially promote human well-being. We'll move on to the next slide. Ethics in business. A quote by Samuel P. Ginder. If moral behavior were simply following rules, we could program a computer to be moral. It's not easy. There's no one formula. Things change. You have to apply things. You have to have a basic set of ethics, but you have to realize that it's not just cut and paste. There are times when things are gray, and that's where you really have to step up to the plate. Ethics in the law. Legal norms and ethical norms are not identical. Is compliance with the law enough to behave ethically? Absolutely not. If I'm driving within the speed limit, am I a ethical person or am I a law-abiding citizen? The answer answer is simple. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I could be ethical or I could be the biggest creep on earth, but I just follow the rules of society, the basic rules, so that I don't get run afoul of the law. So I don't get pulled over and thrown into jail for driving 6 times the speed limit. Is the law itself ethical? Well, the question is, what is the source of that law? Where is it coming from? The law may prevent harm, but does it promote good? Only complying with the law may lead to more regulation, which may not be good because it makes things more complicated. Laws may not be in place for new situations, and as such, that's where your ethics come into that gray area. Laws can also be ambiguous. Laws offer general rules clarified by legal precedent. There is no unambiguous answer for those wishing only to obey the law. Risk assessment is a process to identify potential events and manage risk while still obtaining objectives. Even following the law, managers often face decisions that challenge their ethical judgment. You're allowed to lay people off if you have to, but the question is, are you laying them off ethically? Are you giving them severance? Are you laying them off because of greed? Because you'd rather have more money in your pocket? These are questions that you have to ask yourself. Ethics as practical reasoning. Reasoning about what we should do. The next slide. And it is distinguished from theoretical reasoning, which is reasoning about what we should believe. Theoretical reason is the pursuit of the truth. But again, it's theoretical, it's in theory. There is no single methodology that works in all situations, but guidelines provide direction and criteria for decision. Ethical theories explain and defend various norms, standards, values, and principles used in ethical decision making. The next chapter introduces a model for making ethically responsible decisions. Ethics in business. Voltaire. Oh, we're going way back. No snowflake is an avalanche ever feels responsible. Again, no snowflake is an avalanche ever feels responsible. Very, very deep. Sorry, let me read it again. No snowflake in an avalanche ever feels responsible. In other words, you feel like, yeah, I'm just a little, I'm just a snowflake. There's a massive avalanche. I'm just a little tiny snowflake. I'm not responsible for the horrible avalanche that happened that destroyed the town or the city or killed all the skiers. By you acting unethically as an individual, it's a collective process. It's you. You bring the moral values, the moral decline, the moral bar, if you will, down in society. And as a result of you bringing it down, you bring it down, the next person takes their lead from you. One bad thing leads to another, to another, to another, and then before you know it, everyone is doing bad things and then bringing society down as a whole. And that concludes chapter 1. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.